Hello and welcome back to the Parc Fermé for podcast number 717, or what we're calling Couch Commentators. That's right, Couch Commentators. Welcome back to the Parc Fermé podcast 717. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we are going to share some Formula One news because we typically like to do that, although we don't always do that. Sometimes we do race reviews, and sometimes we just have our head stuck up our backside. But tonight we are going to talk about the news, or what news there was. But before doing that, of course, I have to introduce my guest tonight, which of course means, I'm going to go all the way to the right coast of our nation, nestled in the capital of our nation, where she plies her skills as a master statistician. You know her, you love her. It's the lovely, the redoubtable Grace! Grace, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. I'm excited that we kind of got some snow.
Whoa, you got snow in the swamp?
Yeah, it does snow here. We usually get maybe at least usually one big storm. Sometimes we get a couple, but we haven't had any in a while. There's like some snow. I can still see grass. It's not like snow, but something.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot here. We typically, usually, at some point it will dump like there's no tomorrow, but we've been lucky. But I can't get distracted with that, Grace, because my Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl.
I know. I was thinking that. Well, after we watched part of the Green Bay Tampa Bay game, and I was like, Monday night is either going to be great or not great. Like there's going to be no way around that. But
I know.
It's going to be great. So that's good. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm all in on anybody that beats Tom Brady. So I was already a Patrick Mahomes fan, but now it's just better. Beat Brady.
Yeah, it's time to put him out to pasture.
That's right. I think the stat they offered this morning was Patrick Mahomes was 6 the first time Tom Brady won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I don't really like this game anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's sort of the thing like Kimi and George Russell was in diapers or something.
Yeah, he was like 4 and Kimi was winning. Yeah, it was just like,
right.
I like this game a lot better when I was Patrick Mahomes' age than when I'm Tom Brady's age, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not as much fun now.
Right. Well, if you're followed along, you'll know that I was born and raised in Kansas City, so I was a Kansas City Chiefs fan my whole life. So this is not a bandwagon type of thing, because I suffered through the Bill Kinney years, the Steve DeBerg years, and all of those that time. But I remember being a kid. I remember my dad taking us down, and I remember getting a ride on the shoulders of Bobby Bell, and he and I hit it off. We were buddies. Yeah. And so, all the Lenny D and all the old school, when I was obviously really, really young. So I was like just out of diapers the last time they won a Super Bowl. So last year was a very emotional experience for me, because if my father was still living, he would be elated. And now to go back and try to do it back to back is just, it's amazing for a Chiefs fan. And I've told you before, we used to, in the 80s, and, we used to just go to the Chiefs game so we could see, the late 70s or the 80s, we go to the Chiefs game just so we could see the Steelers come to town, and cheer for the Steelers,
That's right.
Your team.
I like to envision, young 3-year-old, 4-year-old Todd still in his Ralph Lauren polo shirt, but yet it's 4, right?
Right.
Same look, just younger.
Yeah, right. Yes, it was, the heady days when you could go down and hang out at an event with the team. And it was great. So it should be fun regardless of the outcome. Of course, I want my Chiefs to win, but but Buccaneers is a good team. And,
I will point out that I totally stole this from Mina Kimes, who's on ESPN, but I thought it was a great description of Tampa Bay, that they are like Florida Man. You never really know what you're going to get out of Tampa Bay. Sometimes it's, it's coherent and you're like, oh, this is a great game. And then sometimes you're like, what the hell is this mess? So I thought that was it's an extra element of like, what the hell? We don't know what's going to really happen, because Tampa Bay is Florida Man. So
yeah, it is Florida Man.
Yeah, I thought it was just such a great, we don't know. So
no telling.
It'll be good. We've had the last couple of Super Bowls have been actually good. Traditionally the Super Bowl itself sucks, right? It's 2 teams, it's boring. Yeah. But
well, Grace, they have this thing, The Weeknd, playing.
thing. This guy.
I know. I've told this story already, but I just thought it was my daughter won't let it go that I didn't know who The Weeknd was.
Nor should she, you know, right? Like, again, like I remember when I couldn't get something to work, and one of my nieces came over and was just like, "Oh, you just do this thing," and I'm like, "Just remember, someday you too will be old, and
Right.
someday some child will just come in and be like, "Oh, you just do this thing," right, and then leave the room." I was like, "Just wait,
Right.
that day will come, and when that day comes, 30 years from now, I want you to remember this moment right here and go, oh, that's what Aunt Grace was talking about. Yeah."
Yeah. Right. Right.
Give it a moment. She'll experience it as well 30 years from now when
Yeah.
she's like,
Yeah.
who?
Who's
Back
that?
back in my day, we used to listen to, Taylor Swift, right? Like, or
Right.
whatever, right?
Right. The Weeknd.
Yeah. Beyonce, right? And they'll be like, who?
Who?
Right. It'll happen.
Oh my! Hey, I did appreciate the comments we got from the last one. It was like misunderstood lyrics or wrong
yeah.
lyrics on songs, you know.
The best.
And then something was like wrong song titles and what a rabbit trail. We could do a whole podcast on wrong lyrics.
We do, but we'd have to bring Charsley. Like, I think that's something we
Yeah.
can't do without Paul.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, because he could regale us with all the Public Image Limited songs and stuff.
That's right. That's right.
Oh boy. So Grace, I in prep for this podcast, I was thinking, it would be nice to find like a soundbite from Stefano Domenicali on Formula One the calendar or something like that. And so I got on this rabbit trail on YouTube and I was looking at these interviews with Stefano Domenicali. I know I'm saying Stefano. Everybody's like, no, it's Stefano.
Ricciardo. Wait.
Yeah.
It's my job.
And there was these interviews, of course, lots in Italian, which I have no idea what they're saying. I don't speak Italian, but then there was lots in English as well. Whether at Ferrari or Lamborghini or whatever it might be. But I stumbled across this video that was just kind of a mind explosion.
Okay.
It was an interview of him somewhere in like the Swiss Alps, or I don't know where he was, Italian Alps, in the summer, and this green field behind him, and this picturesque mountains. And it was from the 2011 Summer Vroom event.
Well, there's no Summer Vroom. What the hell's that?
What? How did 2011 host a Summer Vroom and we didn't know about it? I mean, Vroom has been the butt of all our jokes for years.
Love Vroom. Vroom is the best. Vroom is like the signal that the no news part of the off season is over and we're about to roll into testing, and so we start getting some news again. So it's like it's leading into some actual content. So
I mean, Vroom was like, might as well be like Pavlov's dog. I mean, when Vroom happened, we were salivating.
Well, yeah, and especially because, back in the day, 10 years ago, they only had 12 races, so the off season was 3 months long. Now they have 62,000 races, so the off season is 3 weeks. So it used to be a real marker that you were like, well, we're on show 18 of the off season. Oh, it's Vroom. Oh my God, it's almost over, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was like after the season ended, everyone rolled up the sidewalks and went home. And you were in this desolate desert of nothingness. And we would do podcasts and we would fill that nothingness best we could. But when we were on our hands and knees crawling that last furlong, dying for water, anything, throw us a bone, Vroom, like a shining oasis came out, and Ferrari hosted Vroom, and then you get to see Bernie Ecclestone on a snowmobile, and it was just priceless to watch all the shenanigans and goings-ons. So that was awesome, and we love Vroom. We lament that Ferrari doesn't do it anymore, but Summer Vroom, somehow
I can't believe
I
didn't
missed that. Either that or I'm getting old and my memory is wasted because I do not remember a summer.
We would have remembered that. There are lots of things in this world that I don't remember and I won't remember, but that I would remember because Vroom was such a great, because that was the other thing too, because they'd bring in the Ducati riders from MotoGP. So it was always let's watch Kimi Räikkönen and Nikki Hayden ski down a slope together and pretend like they know each other, right?
Right.
Hey, I'm your friend. What's up? I'm Casey Stoner. That kind of stuff was always fun.
Yeah. And that's what I always thought. Yeah, you're right. It was Yeah, it was like Nikki Hayden and Kimi. Kimi like,
How
Yeah.
that's possible?
yeah, that was funny.
For what?
Yeah. So anyway, a little tidbit of novelty there. 2011 Summer of Room, and Fernando was there, and I just don't remember that. It's
I
weird.
don't remember it either. I mean, there's been years that like Fernando's been Santa Claus, Luca's
Yeah.
been Santa Claus. Like, I mean,
Felipe.
yeah, I would have remembered. I don't know what
Yeah.
character they would have been in the summertime, but we would have remembered and we would have reported on this. So I think Ferrari has let us down again.
Yeah. Maybe it was like Davos or something. We weren't supposed to know. We weren't
That's-
invited.
Yeah. That's so random though.
Yeah. It's strange.
Room.
Oh well.
Summer Vroom. Well, maybe they'll bring that back, Summer
yeah,
Vroom.
if they can't be bothered with Winter Vroom, at least do Summer Vroom.
Yeah. It's probably
Yeah.
cheaper, Summer Vroom.
Gotta be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
You don't have to rent skis and stuff.
Exactly. Just,
Yeah.
frolic in the green pastures.
Right. Although Winter Vroom, Paul rolling up in his Lotus like James Bond,
Yeah, right.
would be good.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's talk about some Formula One news, shall we? We do have a little news, and I just want to talk about Mercedes, Lewis, Toto, and COVID.
Okay.
You may think
This sounds like a terrible joke, right?
it does.
Mercedes, Lewis, Toto, and COVID going to a bar together, right?
Right. Walk into a bar. Yeah. So they are all linked, by the way. And it's not Lewis having COVID, which we know he did. But the lack of a new contract for Lewis Hamilton has the world speculating. And, the rumor machine is on full throttle when
Right.
publications start quoting Christian Alvarez of all people.
We were just watching Autosports like speculation video on YouTube about what he wants. And I'm like, they're just going down everything that's in everybody's contract, right? Like,
No brown M&Ms.
right. You want the walls painted this color. Like nobody knows at this point because of course you assume it's money, right? And that it's probably where he wants it or how much he wants of the like if they win kind of money and
I want it in cryptocurrency.
right. Of course that's I'm sure what it comes down to, but that we've already beat that dead horse like 3 months ago. So now everybody's just trying to come up with like, well, maybe it's not money. What else could it be? Right? So
well, you've got to be really far down in the Rolodex to start quoting Christian Alvarez in the press.
Yeah, what the heck has that guy been doing?
I don't know. I don't think he was in F1 long enough to have an opinion on F1. But
no,
but
he's not even a content creator like Nico Rosberg.
Right. Or Guido Vandergarde,
Hey, that guy's pretty funny.
He is funny. Yeah,
or Julian Palmer is the other one that it's just like, well, where'd that guy come from?
Wait, you're talking about Julian Palmer?
Yeah.
Jojo, the idiot circus boy.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy.
Jojo.
He also does he has a channel.
Oh, he has a thing. He does his
thing.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, I always think, well, maybe you'll have something interesting. And I think, well, I guess it also doesn't help that every video, as we do, right? You have to take a story that is really a sentence and make it like 20 minutes, right? And I'm like, I can answer this for you. Done. This podcast is 2 seconds too long. We're out. That's the show. Done.
Well, they were quoting him. This is the speculations running rampant. Now, Total Wolf updated the world this week on the progress of the Lewis Hamilton contract negotiations. Apparently, there have been a few curveballs, his words, not mine, such as Zoom meetings, excuse me, and the lack of personal presence in order to explain things in more detail since Lewis is in the U.S., etc.
This works. Like this is Total Wolf. This is how we've all been conducting business for the last year. Like, I don't know. It can be pretty personal. Like just same time each other. Yeah. Fun.
Two F's there?
Yeah, there's like 6 now. It's like a Zoom, room, right? We're just gonna keep adding more O's. But you know what I mean? Like, okay, I don't buy it. We've all
Nicky 6, more X's in his name.
That's right.
Total
whatever. That's a really lame reason. We have to do everything over Zoom. Yeah, so that's all we've all been doing.
Well, he said there's also that pesky COVID thing, which apparently Toto contracted but was asymptomatic, which is good.
Yes.
But here's what he said. Toto says that the team want to continue their success together, but these things take time. And he said, quote, where am I here? Oh, here.
Get down.
No, it's not what he said. He said, the lawyers are working hard. We don't make life easy for them, of course, when we both argue over Zoom and keep sending curveballs to the lawyers. Now, that's interesting. I'll continue.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But he's in America now, and I'm here. At some point, we will finalize it. It's how it is with negotiations. You always come from different corners, but that's quite normal. We have a really solid basis in our relationship. We have celebrated great success together and want to continue doing so in the future, but sometimes you have to talk things out in detail, and that took or still takes us some time. But before Bahrain at the latest, you have to sign something at some point. Now,
Okay.
I don't want to artificially inject things that aren't here, but this isn't the most glowing review of contract negotiations, and I realize that's all by design and intended for the press, but that doesn't seem very conciliatory to me.
No, and so is Toto in Austria? Is that what his here is?
Kitzbühel, yeah, or
Right.
in Austria, yeah.
Okay, so right,
Meaning
so
Lewis isn't in my kitchen.
right, I get that, and that there's some time difference, right? Is the other problem, because if he was in England, it's probably only 2 hours different as opposed to being in the United States.
Yeah, it's 8 or 9 hours. Yeah.
Where he is in the United States, right? But you could still call each other at noon, right? Like, I think that, again, people have been doing business across the globe for quite some time now. You can
I do it every day with my colleagues in Belgium.
see, right? We can figure this out, people. So that's pretty lame to reason. Like, oh, it's over Zoom and there's a time difference. Okay. But I think that it's not normal. What I like is that he's like, oh, this is how contracts go. And I just feel like, I just want to go, hey, Danny Rick, is this how your contract went? No. Okay. Lando, is this how yours went? No. Bottas, is this how yours went? No. So who are all these people that have all these problems? Because it's really just Lewis. I like that you tried to make it sound like this is normal. This is not normal. This is craziness.
I mean, look at Vettel. I mean, he's out of a deal, out of a ride.
Right.
It didn't have this hair on it.
Perez has a contract, right? Like,
Yeah, Sergio Perez, for crying out loud.
come on. I mean, like, but I do like that he tried to make it like, oh, this is how we always operate. It's fine. This is normal.
Yeah.
Nobody else has experienced this, but it's totally the norm.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very odd. But then, also, some folks feel that the George Russell performance was a possible leverage point
Of course.
that Mercedes could be using, but Toto says no. He said, we never played the George Russell card. We did incredibly well and will one day be in a top car, but our long-standing partnership is not at all about making any threatening gestures. We know we want to race together, and now we have to negotiate the contract, end quote. So first of all, I've never heard of the George Russell card, but I'm planning to use that at work. So when someone says something, Bill, I'm going to have to play the George Russell card on you here, because if I had that computer, I could do that just as quickly.
It's like the race card, but with better abs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's better abs. So, yeah. So there's that. But again, I mean, look at the words here he's chosen. He said,
Yes.
the lawyers are working hard. We don't make it easy for them. We both argue over Zoom and then keep sending curveballs to the lawyers. That means they're arguing over the details. And once they think they have the details, then one of them, hence Lewis, will send a curveball at him that they're trying to deal with, right? And so and now he's saying, no, we've never played the George Russell card, meaning, yes, we have the George Russell card we could play, right? That's what that means.
Yes.
And the other thing is he did incredibly well and will one day be in a top car.
I just think that it went something like this. I'm Toto Wolff, and I'm doing this interview with Autosport, right? Like, no, we've never played the George Russell card. Wait, hold on, that's my phone. Oh, it's Lewis. Hey, did we talk to you about George Russell? Get your shit together, right? Like, that's how that went.
Right, I know. It's like, by the fact that everyone in the world is talking about it and Toto's talking about it in the press, Everyone played the George Russell card.
Just
It is currently being, as we speak, played on Lewis.
right. I just think that it's what I said a couple weeks ago, right? Like there's only so many ways you can slide the proverbial piece of paper across the desk. Like there
Right.
are only so many options here. What are you doing? Right? Like so that's why I don't know. And every day it just gets closer. And I think the more, Toto Wolff on the outside is like, oh yeah, whatever. And on the inside is like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? Like it has to be, or somebody, if it's not Toto that's concerned.
Yeah, it's tough.
Sorry.
They may not have played the Russell card, but reference it in the press publicly and all that.
You don't have to.
You don't have
No.
to. And others constantly speculating about it. You don't have to. Surely
Huh?
that doesn't go unnoticed by Lewis. When you
No.
couple that with Lewis's big ask of a
Yeah.
massive contract that goes beyond racing and
Yeah.
set them up for a long-term deal is I don't know the terminology,
Yeah.
but sort of an equity ambassador, if you will,
Right.
on Mercedes' dime post 2021. One wonders if that's the direction that Mercedes wants to go. In the end, Lewis wants an eighth title, and my hunch is that if Mercedes holds out and doesn't want a long-term deal post-racing career, then a one-year extension will be signed with Russell in the wings. Mercedes has the negotiation leverage, and Lewis needs their car to win the eighth world championship. Some may argue that another team could pick him up and then Merck would be racing against him, but leaving it this late in the season or in the year,
Yeah,
there's
there's
no
so
seats
many.
open at any real meaningful competitive teams that
No.
could even take the fight to Mercedes.
Right. On top of the fact that, right, it's not that easy, right? That, it's like
Yeah,
the engine, right? Like we talk about, like just throwing any driver in there isn't really what you want to do
Yeah.
either. But I also like the idea that they're like, hey, George, after this is done, do you want to do anything else with Mercedes? No, you just want to be a Formula One driver for a couple years and then you're going to go. Okay. So Lewis, what is that you wanted again? Right. Like,
Right. Right. I know.
I just think that, of course they want to keep Lewis, but
You
this is
you
just
do.
crazy.
And I'm not trying to be negative with Lewis. Don't take it that way. I'm just
Oh.
trying to be practical about this. If you think about it, what Lewis is wanting is this extraordinary career
Right.
contract. He wants to race next year to beat Schumacher's record, and then he wants to be set up on a pretty hefty. He's used to making 40 million a year or whatever.
Right.
Maybe you want him. Okay, so maybe he'll do that for 20 million a year. I don't know, but still, you got to think about, is that what Mercedes? If it were me, Grace, I wouldn't do the deal that Lewis is asking for. Period. I would offer a 1-year extension, maybe two, for racing only, and I would leave it at that. Committing Mercedes money to a post-racing sort of social justice or equity ambassador role is something Mercedes might struggle to justify, given the salary that Lewis would demand for doing that job. And would the board approve of that kind of expenditure versus what they can achieve on their own marketing budget? I don't know. All those have to be factored in.
So how many times can Mercedes slide no across the table? Like,
Right.
right? Like that's what
Right.
I think doesn't make sense. Like what Lewis is asking for, or what we potentially think he's asking for, all makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense is that Mercedes hasn't put an end to this, right? Like if that's really,
Yeah.
he won't budge, right? These are his demands, these, 3 things, and he's not going to budge. Why wouldn't Mercedes just say, call George, right? Like I'm sorry, right? I don't.
Yeah, I would. I honestly, it was when Ferrari let Schumacher go.
Right.
Everybody's like, "What? He's a
Well, that was a
seven-time world
shocker.
champ.
That was a huge shocker.
Why is he retiring?" And everyone's like, "Well, he just decided to retire." No,
Oh, well,
no,
that
no,
wasn't right.
that wasn't it. It was they had Massa, and
Mhm.
they wanted to get Massa in and all that, and so
Right, it was
they parted. They parted ways. They weren't winning,
too soon.
and Schumacher cost them a fortune.
Mhm.
And I got to be honest with you, I think Lewis cost Mercedes a fortune. And if you could throw George in that car and get those kind of results, or thereabouts,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know, man.
and Lewis has to know, right? Like, how fast did Lewis get over COVID, right? Like, I think if George had
Yeah.
not done so well at Bahrain 1, we wouldn't have seen him, right, in Bahrain 2, right? Because he was in Bahrain 2 and then they had to go to Abu Dhabi, right? So, but anyway, because it was the thing, was Lewis going to be able to get to Abu Dhabi in time, right? But I think that had George been okay, or been more like Bottas or something like that, he might have rested a few more days. But I think that as soon as he saw that performance, how could you not be like, I'm great, I'm good, take my temperature, we're ready to go, we're going, let's go.
Right.
Right? I gotta go. Right? I'm fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm wondering, I mean, at the end of the day, regardless, I tend to think, and I'm not insinuating that George Russell is better or even on par with Lewis Hamilton. He's a 7-time champ.
Right.
Don't get me wrong here. What I am saying is I tend to think the Russell performance was very revealing, either
Yes.
about Lewis Hamilton and the car that he is in,
Or George.
or George Russell.
Right. So
You don't get either way. You don't get to say, no, Lewis's car is damn near impossible to drive, and only Lewis makes it
Right.
successful. Look at Bottas.
right.
And then on the same breath say, George Russell, isn't he good? And he's not as good as Lewis because he got in Lewis' car and pretty much damn near won the race.
Right. Right. And so I think that that is exactly it. And that, and especially because we always talk about, I mean, it's true in any sports, but definitely in racing, everybody's like, well, it's his first year at the team. It's going to take him a little bit to get used to it. Don't be so
Yeah.
hard on Charles Leclerc, right? He's got to get used to it. George didn't have to get used to anything. So,
Mm-mm.
right, either George is an exceptional on-par talent or that car is amazing or some combination of the two.
Combination
But
thereof, yeah.
we all thought George would do well. We didn't expect him to do that well. And I'm sure
No
that
one
was a
did.
surprise, right,
Yeah.
to everybody.
And so I'm willing to say, no, Lewis is otherworldly. Okay, fine. But that makes George even more otherworldly.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because he got in and barring the team gas, won that race,
And in a car that wasn't designed for him.
No,
right?
he was too big. His feet were
Yeah.
too big, and
Right.
he had to wear too tight shoes. And
He
yeah,
was like
it was a
Cinderella's
mess.
stepsisters, right? So
Right. So
um,
yeah, I don't know where they go from this standpoint. I got to say that Lewis is negotiating, and by stalling and drawing this out, it'll be amazing if it pays dividends and they give him everything he wants. Then I'll say, wow, Lewis is amazing by holding out that long, because everything would tell you up into this point that holding out this long, he lost a lot of the leverage because he needs that car to win an 8th title. He's not going to go jump into a Williams. He's not going to go jump into a Renault and win the title next year.
no, but he does also have plenty of other things he could do.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, there's lots of
Right?
other things.
So I
The
think
question is, though, how bad does he want to beat Schumacher's record? Is equaling it good enough, or does he want an 8th title? And I suspect Lewis wants an 8th title big time.
I agree 100% he wants the 8th title, right? Because otherwise you're never going to hear the end of it for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
No, absolutely wants the 8th title. It's just, what is he willing to give up, right? Whose bluff's going to get called here, right? And so I think that Lewis has, a like a giant scrolling list of other things he wants to do, right?
Yeah,
Whether
sure.
it's, extreme E or, right, the more racial justice, social justice movements. I mean, he has plenty of things he wants to do and is
Sure.
doing that he doesn't need Formula One in that sense. But yeah, I think he wants an 8th title. And so
Yeah, I do too.
I don't know.
think
This is weird.
if I was Lewis, I said, all right, look, here's the deal. Let's just do a 1-year extension
Yeah.
until we can figure out what we're going to do after that.
And
1 year to get the 8th title and be done with it. Now, if I'm Mercedes, I don't know that I would do that. Now
Right.
that I think about it, on my first blush, I say, you know what? Yeah, let's do another year contract.
Be
That's
done with it.
probably what I would do.
Mhm.
That would give me another title. Lewis is a fantastic driver. It's going to give me a title. It'll give him his 8th title. We could close the book on that and be done with it. On the
Right.
flip side of it, you've got a regulation change coming. And if I'm Mercedes, it'd be pretty damn handy to have him around for that second season
Right.
to go through that regulation change. And why not just, talk about curveballs, mess with him a little bit and say, not doing the long-term, lifelong, Jackie Stewart
For
contract,
2 years.
but 2 years will do. And then, you're on your own. I
Yeah.
don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this works out.
I just don't know what they're still negotiating.
I don't know. I think a lot of it is Lewis really wanting a longer term sort of role with the team.
So then the team can either give it to him or not, right? Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. Like, at
sure.
some point I can,
Just say no. Say no.
Right.
I'll do another year with you, and you can win the title, and then we'll talk after that.
and that's it. And if you don't want to sign, then we're gonna go call George and have a
Call
nice day.
George.
We had a great run.
Yeah, wish you
Good
the
luck.
best. Because
Right?
at this point, if I'm Mercedes, they brought in Ineos because Mercedes want to spend that kind of money.
Right.
And
I
so why would you want to take pretty much everything Ineos is bringing to the table to hand it to Lewis Hamilton?
Right.
You
I
know?
just so I don't have any questions over the sort of like what each side wants. I just don't know why this is still dragging on, right? Like,
Yeah.
at some point you're either going to go to the prom with me or you're not, right? Like, I can keep badgering you and you're still going to keep saying yes or no, right? But
Right.
it's not going to change at some point. So he's not going to go to prom with Mercedes. Let's move on, because they have like 5 weeks or something to figure something out.
I know. At this point, he's like Ducky and Pretty in Pink.
Yeah. Yes. What are you going to, like, what are you going to do? And what if, and that's the other thing too, is that, like, I don't know if they're talking to George on the side, but what if George is like, no, I don't want to be involved in your messiness, right? Or what if George has different life plans, right? Like, you can't put this person in orbit, George, over here, right? Like, significant other in orbit, because I'm trying to figure out what happens to this guy. Guess what? This guy, you may find out, I can't do it. And this guy's moved on and he's not in orbit anymore, right? He has that ability to do that as well.
Yeah.
So
I think everything was going well, I think, for Lewis, holding out and strong arming the contract deal.
Yeah.
And not that I blame him. I mean, you got to make the
Sure.
best deal you can get. And I
Absolutely.
think everything was going well until he got COVID.
Yeah.
And when he got COVID and set out and George came in
That's all.
and damn near won that race, if it wasn't for the team,
He's unknown, right?
it was like, OMG.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, right, like, sick.
Yeah.
I'm not sick. I don't have a cough. We're good.
Oh, I'm good. I'm back in the
Get
car.
Roscoe. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got
People
gotta
say,
race.
"Hey, what did you think about George in your car?" Yeah, I did. And I said, "Okay, let's go."
Yeah, we're
I
done.
think that changed the dynamic of everything.
Because he was no longer an unknown. Because up until
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
it was only hypothetically how great George was going to
Right,
be, and none of us had
right.
seen it. Well, now we've all seen it.
Yeah,
You can't
right.
close that lid, right?
Yeah.
So,
We'll see. All right, next in the news, F1 needs to fix the Red Bull engine issue. So if
I
I
thought
had
that was Renault's job.
yes, Grace, that was a good one.
Thank you. I'll be here all night. Tip your wait staff.
And we don't have Cyril a bite kick around anymore. Okay, if I had to sum it up, I would sum it up this way. Honda announced that they're through with F1, but have agreed to supply Red Bull both their teams, engines through 2022.
Okay.
That only works for Red Bull if there's an engine freeze in development as the series waits for a complete power unit regulation change in possibly 2025, because Red Bull isn't an engine manufacturer
Right.
and can't afford to develop engines the way Mercedes, Ferrari, Renault, and Honda can.
Right. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to get these cans. Sorry. Shake them up, open them up, and go.
Yeah, right.
And now.
Now, if the freeze isn't agreed to, then Red Bull said they'll seriously reconsider their complete F1 program entirely. And some have taken that as blackmail, according to a report in Autosport. Now, Mercedes is keen for a freeze, and why wouldn't they be? They've got a baked-in advantage I've been talking about since 2014. All right, so of course they're all for it. Ferrari initially balked, but they've agreed to it, and now the only manufacturer with an issue to it is Renault.
Oh, Renault. Surprise.
Yes. Or is that Alpine?
Oh.
So, Helmut Marko says, no, it is not blackmail. He said, quote, everything has been clarified between us. And he said this to Automotor und Sport. 9.
That was even better.
The timing is fixed. Everyone is in the starting blocks, but there won't be an okay until we have written proof from the FIA that the development stop on the engine side is coming. We're waiting for the FIA's decision. There should be clarification on that next week, which was supposed to be this week. All right, so Red Bull leaving F1 would be huge.
It would be huge.
And while many fans said, don't let the door hit you in the butt on your way out a few years ago when they were threatening to leave over Renault's issues, engine debacles they were having, and the denial of a supply deal from both Ferrari and Mercedes, which neither of them would supply them, I made the case back then of just how devastating that would be to F1.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You remember that? Okay,
do.
so, and I took a lot of heat from that. Okay, Red Bull, like them or not, do more for F1 than many other teams combined, including some of the major manufacturers. F1 needs Red Bull as the premier privateer in the series, and they should do all that they can to assist Red Bull in securing a bright future in the sport. You know, there, I said it. I said it.
I think
All right.
I think just like I think there's two things at play here, right? One is the like emotional response to Red Bull, right? Which is the don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way
Yep.
out, right? Of course, who wouldn't feel that way, right? Like,
Right.
but the other side, the more practical, the more I don't know another word for it is no, they can't go, right? I agree with you. It would be really devastating. So I think both are true, right? I mean, it's just like Ferrari used to always do that. They don't do it as much now as they used to, right? But Luca de Montezemolo was always like, we're going to leave. We're going to leave. Fine, Ferrari, you leave. But I get that that's like my emotional fan response to like, I'm tired of you. Every time somebody sneezes in the wrong direction, you're like, oh, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. Fine, then leave. But really, Ferrari shouldn't leave, right? Really, Red Bull shouldn't leave, even if, you know, I do get tired of the like, oh, whatever that is. That plays really well over radio too, right? Like my hand gesture that I don't have words for, but you know. So I think both are true, but I think that honestly, if Red Bull did leave, it would be a big hole in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I know it may not be popular, and you can accuse me of being a fanboy, but everyone knows I'm a Ferrari fan. So this comes from really kind of an unbiased side of my logical thinking.
Right.
If you remove your emotional bias towards other teams or against Red Bull and look at the money they invest in the series, you get a picture of just how big their footprint is on the sport. From the Austrian Grand Prix Young Driver Development Program, they have 4 cars on the grid, not just 2. You know, all the money and marketing and the marketing machine behind everything that they do is massive. The 4 championships they have, the operation they have in the UK with Christian Horner, you know, it's just, they are the premier privateer. This is what you want in Formula One. And it's just a damn tragedy that Formula One has worked themselves into this. And I've been on about this since 2014, and I've been called every name under the sun. But this hybrid is, I mean, it was damn near a death knell for Formula One because you wedged yourself into a corner that you can't get out of now. And the problem is that these teams like Red Bull, McLaren, Alfa Romeo, Williams, Haas, Aston Martin or Racing Point at the time, or even Force India at the time, none of them can compete in Formula One without, you know, going hat in hand to Mercedes and please, so may have some more, right? And they're saying, no, we're at max. We're supplying a max number of teams. Well, now I got to do what? I got to take a Renault? You know? I mean, this is insanity, and they're paying the price for that now. So don't blame Red Bull, because one of Formula One's premier manufacturers, who they should have been keeping happy in the sport, has now just packed up and left on a moment's notice, leaving Red Bull high and dry. And everybody say, well, it's up to them, get their own manufacturer. Manufacturers of what? Who's going to come in and sink the kind of R&D into this this technological nightmare for a season? Nobody. You know, you got to be realistic about it. So sorry to get on a soapbox, but I just don't understand that, you know, the hatred and everybody just, oh, well, fine, just let them leave. No, you can't do that.
Okay, first of all, you're in charge, so you get to have a soapbox whenever you want.
Yeah.
Second, right? Like, I feel like this is the only place you get that therapeutical soapbox if your life is anything like mine, right? So, like, here's the moment where you can just say what you want, and you don't have to be like, "Oh, that's really nice, Grace. Thanks for sharing that opinion with you." You know, right? So, have your soapbox. I think 2, clearly I should have just let you talk instead of interrupting you. And 3, I should have read your last bullet point. I totally agree with that, right? Like that's what I was poorly trying to say because I did not read the last bullet point, which is right. There's the emotional side, which is don't let the door hit you on the way out. But then there's the very logical, practical side that says, no, don't go. Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
And,
absolutely.
look, I understand if you're not a big Red Bull fan and you thought that they mishandled the whole Renault thing a couple of years ago. I hear you. I get it. I understand. Yeah, I don't think they handled it the best. But on the flip side, think about it logically. Renault were handing them grenades,
Right.
and they were blowing up and ruining their any chance Red Bull had of winning. And it's difficult to be so reliant on somebody who's promising development, promising reliability. It doesn't show up, and you're losing cars off the side of the track. I mean, they were beyond frustrated. Admittedly, sometimes how you handle adversity is more important than the adversity itself. And I agree, maybe Red Bull did get a little snotty about it, but Cyril was pretty snotty in his own right.
Well,
If you watched a Drive to Survive,
I think I think Christian Horner's narrative, if you will, isn't great. That doesn't help either, right? Like if it was Toto Wolff instead of Christian Horner, right? This would be a very different discussion because you like Toto Wolff. He's a nice guy. He cracks jokes, right? Get down. Exactly, right? Yeah. And so I think that if you put these words coming out of Toto Wolff, it would be much more palatable than anything coming out of Christian Horner because he's always a jerk about everything, right? And so I think it's just I don't think that helps, and I don't think Max Verstappen's kind of like that too, right? Which is why they kind of work as a team, right? And then you have the problems that you have somebody that comes in that's nice and it hasn't seemed to work for them, right? So I think that their narrative isn't great. And I think that also is what feeds into the emotional, like, well, get the hell out of here. We don't care. Right. That bitiness. I don't know what the word is.
Yeah. I get it.
Help, right.
I'm not saying you're,
right.
Of
but
course,
I think
it's your opinion, but I'm not saying anyone's wrong for having a butt full of this, but bad move if they don't fix this problem.
And he's gonna, I think this is something, often we talk about like Lewis Hamilton, like people will get on Lewis, like old Lewis, not now, but 5 years ago, Lewis never says it's his fault. Yeah, because if Lewis comes out and says, you know what, guys, that was my fault, then you'd all jump on him. See, he's a terrible driver. Lewis can't do anything. Like, you can't win. So he may tell them in private, yeah, I screwed up, right? But in public, he can't say that. And so that's always a part of it too, right? Like, so what that Christian Horner may play more the like, kind of the Kobe Bryant kind of mind games, tough guy kind of thing. And that's just not maybe who he really is at home, right? It's just the role he has to play as a team principal of Red Bull.
Hell no, he's not that way at home. He's married to a Spice Girl.
I don't know. I still think that was one of my favorite Drive to Survive when they asked the kids like what their favorite driver is, and one goes, Lewis Hamilton. Like, yeah, suck it, Dad. So see, I think that he is that way at home. I don't think that's just a role he plays because any child that gives a response like that is like, and you're a jerk, Lewis Hamilton, right?
Right. That was
but good. I think that sometimes and Toto Wolff does that. Toto Wolff, I always joke, is the kid that says, I don't know how I did on this test. Oh, I got an A, right? Like that's always everything Toto Wolff says. So, Christian Horner has a way about him too, but it does not help him win the likability emotional pull, but that's not what they're here for.
No, they're here to win.
Yeah.
This next story, not a whole lot behind it, but Williams did announce that they rehired Jenson Button. He's going all the way back home. They announced, we spoke last week, Grace, about Williams keeping that down-homey feel.
That's right.
In order to do that, they've now gone out and hired one of the young stars from days of old, back when Sir Frank was in. Yes, that's exactly what they've done. They've hired Jenson Button. Jenson is going to be functioning as a senior advisor in a multi-year deal. And he brings not only team wisdom, but car and driver development. And it's not unprecedented. If you think about what Niki Lauda was doing with Mercedes, you think about what Alain Prost is doing now with Renault, right? They've got former drivers there functioning very much in the same manner. I think it's great. In some ways, having JB there could be very helpful or influential for George and Nicholas, to be honest. I always find on Sky Sports, I always find JB in particular and Ant and PDR's commentary on Sky Sports the most succinct and accurate. And I think JB has a lot to offer from Williams, just listening to the way he analyzes a race and sees it beyond that. PDR and Ant do that as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. Oh, also, but JBE will also continue his work on Sky Sports F1 as well. So it's not like he's going to stop doing that.
Yeah.
So that's good. I see. This is what I'm thinking here, though, Grace. I keep thinking this is something that maybe Lewis should have his eye on.
Yeah.
This sort of makes sense. It seems to make sense to me where Lewis would be saying, okay, I'll drive for a year or two, win the 8th title, and then I'll kind of slot into that Nicky Lauda role for the team where I'm, as a senior advisor like Jenson Button, like Alain Prost, and working with Mercedes and the team. That makes more sense to me.
Okay, so first of all, the reason why I think this actually happened was because Sky Sports said, Jenson, we're only going to pay for you to go to these 10 races. And Jenson said, how am I going to get to the other 15 races?
Right.
And he called Williams and he said, hey, can I advise you at Bahrain and Germany and Monza, right? Like, those are the ones I need. And if we go to Portimao, I will need that one too, right? Like, so I think this is just Jenson trying to get a full Formula One travel budget that he's not paying for.
Oh, and by the way, I'll need a hard pass.
Right.
We do that. So that would be good. And then, I need, I'm willing to consult with you on 7 races.
Right.
And here's those races where I think you're going to need me the most.
That's right.
And they say, well, what about Monza?
No,
no, you don't need me at Monza.
I could just see it now, like, like, how about Silverstone? Oh, no, I was garbage at that track. Well, actually, that's where you've had your most wins, or what? I don't know where he's had his most wins, but I think that also would be a funny, like, well, actually, you're quite good there. No, not anymore. They changed the layout. I'm terrible there now.
Right. And now somebody was at home and they read this headline, and the first thing they thought is, oh, no, does that mean he's not going to be on Sky Sports? Oh, no, that means Nico Rosberg is going to be doing more.
No. Okay, so nobody needs that. The only person that wants that is Ant Davidson, because I swear, after the one race that they did together where Jenson Button just jabbed Ant the entire broadcast.
Yeah, right. Sure, I remember that.
And Ant was like, I'm sure he's fuming. Like, I can't see him, but you can feel it in his voice that he's just like, after this mic goes cold, I'm punching you in the face. Like,
and it's like, okay, I'm small. I get it. Can we get off of it?
Yeah. I get it. You've won more things than I have. Congratulations.
Right. It's funny.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
I think he's just he has another kid and he doesn't want to be at home, and he's just trying to string those races together. So, sorry, dear, I can't change this diaper. I gotta go.
Time. Got to get down to Heathrow.
Gotta go.
All right.
Gotta go.
All right. In other stories, Bottas motivated by couch commentators. That's right, folks. Valtteri Bottas says he doesn't care what couch commentators say, and in fact, they motivate him to prove them wrong. Here's what he had to say.
I'm glad we have a purpose now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all this time before, we didn't know what his motivation was. Now we know it's people talking shit about it.
That's us. Good.
Yeah,
got
exactly. So here's what he had to say. He said, quote, "But no matter what you do, there's always going to be negativity, sometimes less, sometimes more. And it's the same with the criticism. But it's a motivation to prove people wrong, no doubt. And I think I've said it before, sometimes I just don't get why there is that kind of criticism. I guess there's always a reason, but I don't know the reason. And again, I'm not in their position, so I have no idea what goes into their head."
First of all, I like that you started reading that kind of like Yogi Bear. But no matter what sometimes less, sometimes more. Hey, boo-boo.
Sometimes less. Hey, boo-boo.
I like the idea of Valtteri Bottas, so, actually being Yogi Bear.
Yogi Bear. Hey, boo-boo.
I don't know what's in their heads. The picnic
I don't know what got into them. Where's the lunch basket?
But, I don't know. I'm sure he just gets tired of, what would be a more annoying question than every time somebody sees you and they go, "What do you think about so and so and so and so saying something?" Like not even like people you've heard of. Like it's one thing when it's,
Christian Albers.
You're right. Julian Palmer. No, I think, it'd be one thing if like, oh, I heard this thing on Autosport, or I heard this thing on Racer,
Yeah,
or
right,
Motorsport GP, or motorsport.com, right? Like I heard some legitimate people who legitimately do this for a living talking about this
Right.
legitimate thing, as opposed to, Joe Smo 74 on Twitter said, right? Like that's got to be super annoying because nobody ever says anything nice about you and you're tired of hearing about what Joe Smo 72 has to say. And so
Right.
I don't know what else you would say. Like, is it just like his nice way of saying, why don't you ask me a real question instead of this dumb shit y'all ask me all the time, right?
Right.
I don't
Well,
care.
and fair enough, but it's not really the couch jockey you need to prove wrong, Valtteri. It's Lewis you need to prove wrong and show
That's not gonna
Mercedes that
happen.
they should keep you in the seat and that you can win titles. I mean, no one likes criticism, and I get that. But after several seasons, he hasn't shown the couch armada that he can beat Lewis, and people are beginning to talk, quite honestly. And that's only
Yeah.
natural given George's performance last year.
I just think that if Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello existed now as a team, as opposed to in 2002, 2003, 2004, this is what Rubens would be saying, right? It just
Yes.
it wasn't like this back
Right.
then, right? This is
Right.
always what you're going to get when you're the number 2 behind a very strong number 1. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
got to Rubens, and he didn't even live in the social media age of Joe Schmo
No.
72 asking him why isn't he beating Lewis at every turn.
No,
So
he had to hustle over to Matt Bishop and sound off in F1 magazine.
there you go. See, that's what I mean. Like it would be different if
Yeah.
Matt Bishop was
Right.
asking you these questions, right? But I think
Yes.
that you now get it from every angle, and he's like, I'm doing a good job here, people. Like,
Well, listen, he gets it from me. I mean, fair enough. And, I'm touched, Valtteri, that you
what I'm
were
saying.
motivated by me, and that's good.
After 13 years, I finally found my purpose in this world.
Motivating Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, we should
I'm
put
all
that
for
on a
it.
shirt.
I motivated Valtteri Bottas. I
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah, I
All
did
right.
that. Who
Ah,
has 2 thumbs and motivated Valtteri Bottas?
yeah, that's right. I motivate Bottas. Let's see. Steiner praises Romain.
Well, he can't not now. Like the guy almost died in your car. What is he gonna
I
say?
know you can't say anything negative, and Romain.
A prodigious talent.
It's yes.
That's it. So here's what he had to say. Now that Haas has parted ways with the Frenchman Romain Grosjean, team boss Gunther Steiner has had time to praise him. He said, quote, "On a good day, boo-boo." No.
Okay, first of all, Yogi Berra doesn't swear enough to
Yeah,
be Gunther Steiner's
that's
monologue,
true.
right?
That's true. He said, on a good day, Roman was one of the best ones out there, but he sometimes pushed and tried too hard. Then you see those errors. He just went over the limit, and then the errors come, end quote.
This was his praise. This is Gunther Steiner giving praise to Roman
Pretty
Grosjean.
much.
This was literally like, oh, okay. I feel like this isn't okay. I gotta be nice. I'm gonna be
Right.
nice. Word 1, word 2, word 3. I can't be nice anymore. He's terrible. He crashes into everything. Like he just can't.
Right.
Like he made it one sentence
I know.
before
And then the
he.
Tourette's kicks in. And
Yeah,
it's
right.
difficult
Like
to
I don't
manage.
know. This is
Yeah.
praise. This is that it should be like an air quotes, right?
Yeah,
Gunther
right.
Steiner praised Roman Grosjean. He really did not.
I think this is an issue that most people scratch their heads about with Roman, and I
Yeah.
think Gunther's right. Roman had the pace clearly, but it seemed like the racecraft needed to prevent those over trying and unforced errors. Just never quite came, and I kept thinking he would, have the sort of the same career arc as like Sergio Perez or Nico Hulkenberg, something like that. But the errors and the 2 or 3 seasons that we had to endure of constantly complaining about the brakes left me wondering, where's the racecraft and that development going to end up? And it never did.
Maybe if he wasn't at Haas, maybe that's part of the problem.
Should have been a Renault.
I don't know. I'm just saying, George Russell, maybe it's the car.
Yeah, right. Well, hey, look, if he races elsewhere, I hope he does find some sort of harmony and cadence with
I
the
do
new
too. I mean,
series and car, and because I like Roma.
I think everybody likes him, right? He's a very personable guy. I think, and
Yeah,
if you
he's a good
if you
guy.
didn't really know a lot about him before, you do now, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
think
yeah,
so. I
yeah,
think
for the
that
wrong reasons, but yeah,
absolutely for the wrong reasons,
yeah.
right? But I think that, um, I don't think anybody wishes him, ill. I think he's
No,
he's a
no,
good
no.
guy, well liked.
He is.
And
Yeah.
I just think that, when you said that Gunther Steiner had praise for him, I was like, really, we all watched Drive to Survive, buddy, where you like roasted him. And then when everybody's looking at you like in horror because you shouldn't say that about a person, your response is, don't worry, I'll tell it to his face later. That's
Yeah.
not the right response either, right? Like you should have been like,
No.
you're right, I've had too much to drink. I'm going to sit down now, right?
Right. Right.
We won't watch that. So I think that,
Yeah.
but this is what I would expect for him as praise, right?
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, there was a funny part in his quote. He said, "quote There's been some mistakes that he's made that have been big. Say Baku, 2018, where he crashed under the safety car." But that got so much attention. But if you look at what position he was in when he crashed, that was unbelievable. I think it was fourth or something in a Haas.
Yeah.
It was like totally stunned that piece of crap was up into fourth.
Right. Yeah. So
I thought that was pretty funny.
that is pretty funny. I do.
Gunther.
Yeah. I just don't want this to be Roman Grosjean's narrative, right? I think
No, no.
nobody wants him to be most known as the guy that almost died at, Bahrain.
Yeah. That's not fair.
Right.
Because, he had some great drives.
He did.
He had some great pace, great dives. And yeah, I think the thing is that the pressure was all there on that team at all times. And the reason I say that isn't just a blind defense of Roman, because you could see it in Kevin.
Yeah.
When Kevin got there, the car was pretty good on the first season. Kevin was driving pretty measured, but you started seeing Kevin get more, more ragged as he tried harder and harder and harder to get a result of that car. And and I could see both of them. And Roman, sometimes his mistakes a little more dramatic, but Kevin had his fair share too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both drivers, experienced drivers, were just trying to make something happen, and it just didn't happen. So I hope it's not for me. That isn't Roman's legacy that he,
but
crashed in a fireball. That's not his legacy to me. I think he's had much better races to remember, and he led the GPDA and those kind of things.
Yeah, I just don't want the rest of the world to know him for that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Let's see. Alfa Romeo's future. Well, an article over at Autosport says that Alfa Romeo will continue with the Ferrari relationship through 2025 after some speculation that had them moving to Renault at the end of this year when the contract expires. I hope that isn't the case.
Why would
because,
they do that?
Well, I don't know, and I hope they wouldn't just, go over to Renault and get a Renault engine or change away from Alfa Romeo. That's the grid's best logo.
As I've said, it is the grid's best logo.
Right. So I hope they don't do anything dramatic. I mean, it makes sense that Alfa Romeo being, they're branding their car Alfa Romeo, that in conjunction with Ferrari. It also makes sense from a monetary and competitive edge that they can benefit from Ferrari's desire to market Alfa and get decent engines and gearboxes in the process, and get some Ferrari young drivers or whatever they want to do. So yeah, it would seem really weird that they would jettison that. I think they've been as Sauber now Alfa. They've been working with Ferrari. It's 2010-ish.
I was gonna say it sounds about right.
Somewhere around there, 11 something. I hope I'm right on that.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. In final news, Grace, you'll like this one. Christian Horner says Max is better than Lewis.
Of course.
For it is a human number.
Oh boy.
What is he going to say? I mean, the only thing that would be really crazy if he went, and Fernando Alonso is better than both of them, right?
Right. So, according to a report, take this for what it's worth, all right? According to a report over at the Daily Mail, Christian Horner also says that the George Russell performance explained a few things to him. He said, quote, Verstappen is the best, and George Russell's performance at Mercedes confirmed that for me. Max and Lewis stand out, but while we should definitely not be blind to what Lewis or Hamilton has achieved, he does have a good package at his disposal, while Max has to get more out of his car. At Mercedes, a Williams driver can qualify himself directly on the front row, and Russell almost won the race. However, if at Red Bull, someone has to get into Verstappen's car, for example, if Max has Corona, then nobody will reach his level. The others have a hard time compared to Max's performance.
That's pretty rich. That's pretty good.
Huh?
He spun a nice one there.
Yeah, that was a good one there.
That was good. That was some good mental,
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu there. That was pretty good.
You know, Bottas doesn't have to go Nico Rosberg on Lewis because Horner is.
That's right. That was great.
Getting in his head.
Yeah,
You know,
go
it's
ahead,
kinda like-
George. Come be in the Red Bull. I don't think you'll do as good as Max. Go for it.
You know, he's like, yeah, well, George just jumped in, qualified the front row, and almost won the race. Yeah, Lewis isn't driving otherworldly. Max is.
Right.
And yeah, that
Nicely
was
done.
interesting. Yeah. Good head games. Those are the fun things in the paddock.
Yes.
But I think Christian is saying, honestly, if I'm honest here,
Mhm.
I think Christian is kind of saying something that many folks are thinking. And after George's run, I don't know. I read all the comments on social media. I saw a lot of this. Regardless of whether Toto has used the George Russell card or not, I don't think Lewis can avoid the impact it had on his contract position or the perception of his seven titles for detractors. Now, for Lewis fans, that's much easier said than done, and no doubt they strongly disagree. They would feel that Lewis is as instrumental in that car's success as anyone at Mercedes,
Sure.
and that George was just the benefactor of a car that Lewis helped build. And, you know, there's probably truth in both sides of that, maybe somewhere in the middle. I don't know.
Right. Like had this happened 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been this easy.
Yeah, maybe it wouldn't have been that easy. You know, maybe
Right.
Lewis was able to really help in the development direction of that car to really flatter his driving style perfectly, you know?
Right.
And, you know, George jumps in, feet are too big, wearing tight shoes, puts it on front row, pretty much wins that race.
Right.
It wasn't for the gaff. So, yeah, Christian's like doubling down. It's
Yeah,
pretty interesting.
as you should. That is why we love Christian Horner.
That's right. You love him for the sound bites.
Always, always. He's
Ah.
much better on the pit wall than Franz Toast. So
I agree.
we got to keep
All
him
right.
around.
Well, it's that time. That's right. It's that time for my fun/random fact, the slashy, if you will. Dug this one up,
Okay.
and this one was interesting too. I didn't remember and didn't even really put this together back in 1997, but I found this one interesting. So Michael Schumacher and Jacques Villeneuve were the title rivals in 1997. Now, if you've been watching long enough, you'll remember that. And you had 96, right, which was Hill, and then 97, it was Schumacher and Villeneuve. And Villeneuve won the title, and they were rivals, you know, going at it hammer and tongs. And strangely, neither driver shared a podium together that year.
Huh.
They won 12 races between them, Schumacher 5, Villeneuve 7. Not once did they both share a podium.
That's crazy.
Isn't that wild?
That is pretty wild.
Pretty darn strange.
Yeah. That's a pretty fun/random fact.
It is. Makes you think. How did that happen? Also, did you know that every driver named Hill is a world champion in Formula One?
Yes. Now that you mention it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Any driver who is out there and their last name is Hill, you got a pretty damn good chance of winning a
Well,
championship.
Yeah, I guess Mick, the pressure's off, right? He doesn't have to worry about that.
Right. You don't have to worry about that. So anyway, so that's my random fact. All right.
Okay.
That does it for the podcast. That's all we know this week. But hey, share your opinion. Let us know. I'd be particularly interested in your comments and opinions on the Lewis Hamilton contract negotiation. What you folks think. You know, would you sign a check, give him a 1-year drive deal and 3 years as their sort of equity ambassador? Would you do
Right.
that, full throated because of everything he's done for the team? Would you say, no way, I'll only give you one deal, 1-year deal? Would you tell him take a hike because I got George? What would you do? Because you don't want to spend $40 million a year, when you could get George for peanuts. Yeah, let us know what you guys think. I'd be interested in that. You can do that at theparcfermé.com and share your opinion. Just do it with decorum and civility, no personal attacks. So watch that. There's a little dodgy moment there this week, but thanks for the rest of you for chiming in and reminding that's not how we roll.
Okay.
And so that's good. If you like the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a good rating. Huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast without you. And if we didn't have your support, you would be actually having to find other really much better F1 podcasts to listen to. So there you go.
No such thing.
So thank you so much for all of that. Also, I hope you guys enjoying the video. If you didn't know that we're recording these Zoom calls, and I'm not doing a bunch of fancy editing and stuff like that. Just honestly, that takes a lot of time. I would love to do that, but as of now, we're just taking that recording and putting it on YouTube. So if you ever want to go to YouTube, go to our YouTube channel. And you can watch all of our podcasts and see all of our crazy hand waving and nonsense and our talking heads.
And amazingly, I've been visited by no cats this show.
I was wondering where Levi was, but yeah, that's amazing.
Don't ask those kind of questions, man.
Yeah.
Leave the sleep and Levi sleep. I have
Yeah, that's right.
no idea. But yeah, last show was good time.
Yeah, that's right. So you never know what'll happen if you watch the video.
No, that's right. That's right. Otherwise, you just hear me mumbling under my breath at
Right. And some of the faces that Paul pulls, that's worth, admission alone, So anyway, and if you're looking for something to do this coming weekend, you can be cheering for our own Paul Charsley and the number 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin team at the 24 Hours of Daytona this weekend. Paul and team and Ian and everybody down there doing a great job. Very excited to watch them and hopefully bring home a win. That would be terrific. So anyway, until next week, when we do this all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Gamer, saying so long, Grace.
See you next week.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.